Hey everybody, Aaron Calafato here. This is unscripted story sessions. It's the first of a iteration of attempts in the last year or so. I think we've narrowed it down to at least coming on here once a month and sharing unscripted stories with you. So first, this is how I tell stories. I don't write any stories, never have. It's a pretty simple process. I catch them, not literally, but I kind of catch them as I go through the world, as many of you do, observe the stuff in my own simple little life. And then once I catch them, I kind of store them away. And the ones that feel right to tell, I put just a bullet point and give it a title, a working title, a theme. And then from there, I break through just a simple beginning, middle, and end structure in my head. And I just tell them live. And that's what started my podcast, 7 Minute Stories. That's my flagship podcast. And it's the leading short form autobiographical podcast in the world as of now. It's kind of created its own category with a lot of folks around the globe listening. And so, one of the things I've been trying to do is it would be interesting to create a space where it's not quite a podcast, but it's not quite a live event. It's just streaming. And I'm telling you stories for a couple hours. Now, some of these stories I've adapted and I've told before, just like you tell stories to people that you love, they'll always say, hey, like, I've heard that story before. The older you get, the more stories that you end up telling. Everyone's like, here we go. It's like with my kids. It's like, did I ever tell you about the time? Hey, do you remember I told you about my aunt? I mean, it's a really crazy story, right? Or whatever it is. Grandpa used to have this saying, but we have these repeated rituals which are really beautiful, and I have them too. So some of these stories will be repeated or adapted from stories I've told on the road, performing on my podcast, 7 Minute Stories, and shared here, maybe in a different way, in a longer way, more than 7 minutes, shorter than 7 minutes. And some of them I'm going to create in the moment here with you. And so in between these stories, if you want, you can tap into the chat wherever you're streaming, whether it's YouTube, Facebook. I think we're on a few other places. And hopefully, this sparks a story for you. Hopefully, this sparks a memory for you. And if it does, drop it in the chat in between the stories. I'll try to interact and talk with you. It'll be great. Tonight's theme is about making sense and making meaning out of small town America. Many of us grow up in small town America. I do, and live back here. I've boomeranged. One of my favorite movies in the world is It's a Wonderful Life. And it's not just because it's a Christmas movie. And damn it, that's one of the reasons why, because I love Christmas movies. I think I might be the only person in America right now who's sad that it's hot outside. At least here, last week or so in Ohio, like the last maybe 4 or 5 days, we hit 75 degrees. If I had a perfect day, I can tell you what I do. I would just kind of stay in the basement in the cool air all the way through the afternoon. And then finally, right around twilight, I would emerge. When it's cooling off, that's when I would come out into the world because I love the cool and the cold. So It's a Wonderful Life, great Christmas movie. But that's not the reason or the only reason why I love it. I love it because I relate to it with the struggle that George, the main character, has with growing up in a smaller town and having these hopes and dreams of going out into the big city, going out into the world, making something of himself. What does he say? He says something like, I'm going to shake the dust of this town off my feet and I'm going to go out into the world. And he says something like this, right? How many of us have felt that way? How many of us still feel that way? You feel a certain way when you grow up in a smaller town because you see in the media you consume, by the way, it doesn't matter the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you feel a certain way about it. Now, some people are built for it and they know they love it from the time they're born. Some people love growing up and living small town life. There's other people who have a conflict with it. There's some people who can't stand it and leave altogether. I was in that conflict zone. Have you been in that conflict zone where you love where you're from, or you love the town that you live in, or you like the small town life, but there's things that drive you nuts about it? I think it depends on your situation, right? Sometimes people need to leave to start fresh. They need to get out. I totally get that. My thoughts, that's not what this story is about. It's not about starting over. But let's just say you grow up and it's a pretty decent upbringing, just like George in the Christmas story. The guy just wants to get out. But what's funny about that movie is he ultimately discovers that despite what he thinks he wants to do, despite the fact of all the things that happen that hold this guy back, the death of his father, the bank's going under, people need help, he sticks around. He's thinking, when am I going to get out of this town? There's this scene in the movie where he walks up to the camera. He's on the front porch. There's a party going on in the background. I think his brother is getting married. And he's out there, he's just smoking a cigarette. You ever had those quiet moments? You know what I'm talking about, where you just got to get out of the party and you're reflecting on your life. He's standing out there smoking. And there's this beautiful moment, no words, no story, just him, George Bailey, standing outside, and he's smoking a cigarette. You can tell I never, smoke, but this is what this kind of thing. You know what I mean? And he's smoking and he's looking out in the distance, and you can hear on the audio track, you can hear the train sound. And there's George looking out, and he hears the sound, the whistle of that train. It's like his freaking dreams were being shipped away. The sound of the train symbolized everything kind of going out and leaving him. I was always moved by this because when I grew up, and it's funny, I live now where I grew up, and that's what this whole theme tonight's going to be about. I had that conflict. I was listening to that train. I liked where I was from, but I thought, I don't know, I want something more. I want something this, and this. And so I ended up taking that train. I left for several years, almost half a decade, and to DC and to New York and traveling around the country performing monologues. And the funny thing is, no matter where I went, all I did was tell stories about my home. All I did was tell stories about where I was from. Some people can leave and they can't wait to get it out of them. I left and I couldn't get it out of me. I couldn't get where I was from out of me. I remember being in New York, a little club or a bar, and I'm just telling stories about Northeast Ohio. I'm broadcasting right here, 20 minutes south, Medina, Ohio, in the shadow of the Rust Belt. And I can hear my own voice in the background. All the memories I had of, man, this is cool, but I'm never going to stay here. I sounded just like freaking George Bailey. I'm going to shake the dust. And the funny thing is, full circle now, in my early 40s, I wouldn't want to live any place else. And after that short journey, sometimes you have to go, you know, it's very generic, but sometimes you have to go to know where you really belong. And I'm so glad that I left. I made a lot of wonderful friends. But when I came back, I knew this is where I wanted to be. If you ever had that, you know what I mean. That feeling of kind of going out and saying, it never quite felt like home. You know what I'm saying? It never quite felt like home. I would live years in places. I would try to get my rhythm. I'd find the coffee shop. I'd find the, the pattern of my day. I tried to, whatever it is. And it was like I was acting. Now, some people can just start freaking anew. How do you do it, folks? Anyone out there? How do you do? How do you just start anew? It's the wildest thing in the world. You all just kind of just move and leave. Next thing you know, you're like, you plant roots. I think that's a skill. It's a skill I do not have. And so I found my way back here, and it's the best thing that's ever happened. And with a little bit of luck, and thank God for technology, I can broadcast from where I'm from. And now I get to draw all these stories about where I'm from. And the best thing about storytelling, the greatest thing, is that if it ends with me, then it's not a good story. A great story, short or long, should always end with the reader, the listener, the viewer, the streamer. They're the ones that should spark their own stories. And that's been the goal of my podcast, 7 Minute Stories. And that's the goal of this series I want to start now, which is for the next few hours, you can stream passively. You can just kind of chill out. You can stream on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're getting this. You can share your own stories in the chat. What I'm talking about sparks something in you, something you remember, drop it in there. And in between these little story arcs, I'll get in there and we'll have a back and forth. Or you can just listen in the background. Going to try to do this once a month. Like I said, unscripted. Don't have anything written. Not, it's just you and me. And we'll work off a theme. And maybe there'll be new stories born right here. Maybe we can work on it together. The time's 9:07 p.m. Eastern Time. Squinting because I should be wearing glasses. Shows my age right now. Come on, dude. All right, I'm putting the glasses on. Damn it. April 12th, 2026. Here we are. I'm Aaron Calafato. I'll be your storytelling guide tonight. All right, so speaking of the need to tell stories about where you're from and make meaning of it. Can I tell you a story about when I got really obsessed with Amish culture? This is like Amish paradise. So I remember getting back from New York. I kind of did this intro and I was telling you about a little bit of my arc about where I came from, Medina, Ohio, went out to New York, came back, tried to start my career, ended up doing storytelling, and now I do it right here from my home. I'm literally 2 blocks away from where I went to elementary school. I'm walking in shadows of memories. That's where I draw a lot of the stories from. But I remember when I first moved back, I didn't want to move to a quiet, sleepy suburb. I didn't. I wanted to be near a city. So I moved to Cleveland proper and then found an apartment just outside of the city. But I wasn't happy. I just remember sitting at this stoplight. And I remember watching this person walk across the street. And it was one of these days where traffic was wild. It was hot outside. People were pissed. I remember the guy's physicality when he was walking across the street, had a certain way of walking, moving. Like the weight of the world was on this guy's shoulders. And I remember one of these bags, these plastic bags, are flying around all the time. Is there anything uglier than a plastic bag that gets stuck in between a fence? You know, you're driving around the city and it's just like bags and trash, garbage flips over, it's just stuck. And I remember he was walking across the street. Guy, he's kicking a bag on his foot, can't get the bag off his foot. So he's kicking the bag, he's kicking the bag. And I could tell every time he kicked, he got more angry. And I'm just sitting in the car at the red light watching this. I look over at the abandoned strip mall. It's got about 1,000 potholes in there. Just dirty water sitting in it. Looked at the facade of the strip mall. I'm like, what the heck? Where am I living? Again, some people are born in the city and that's what's in them. Some people can live anywhere. But I'm looking, I'm going, wait a second. If I'm being honest, everything looked just depressed and broken down. And you know what? That's okay. But I think at that time in my life, I was like, I've been living in places like this for years. And I missed the sort of texture of the rural and suburban, the outer suburban, the sort of countryside, township way of living I grew up in. It's just close enough where you're connected, just far enough away where you're far enough away, where there's a quality of life. And I'm sitting at this stoplight and I start thinking about where I grew up and I decided I was going to take a drive because I had just been watching a movie called Witness with Harrison Ford and he falls in love with an Amish woman. Okay, this is totally fetishizing a culture I know nothing about, but I do know, being from Ohio, we have Amish country that's 20 minutes away from where I live right now. There's Amish country 20 minutes away. And I've seen it. And it's not for everybody. And listen, here's the I thought it wasn't for me. But then I'm sitting at this stoplight in the city. I'm looking at this dilapidated strip mall. I see the guy kicking a bag. Everyone's pissed, honking the horns at each other. They're angry. They got earbuds in. No one's looking at each other. There's no connection. I can't even see nature. I just see smokestacks and stores and lights and potholes and gravel and road signs. I see all kinds of stuff. I don't recognize it. And now I'm living there. I've been living there for almost a decade. I'm thinking this is the first time where I said I just want to go home. I just want to go home. So I turned the car around. And I remember I'm driving. I'm about 45 minutes away from my hometown of Medina, Ohio, and I'm driving the car and I'm just driving with the windows open and I am getting through parts of the city. And it's interesting, you ever see how a city kind of gets built up and then kind of fades away? When you're driving, and I've traveled, on the road a lot, it's kind of this buildup, right? You go from nothing, nothing, farm, nothing, 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 few houses, township, suburb, 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 suburb. Then it starts adding more layers. Then it goes from suburb to then it's outer ring suburb, then inner ring suburb, then urban, then city, then factory, and it builds up like a composition. If you're driving, there's like a music to how the rural builds into the urban and then the urban builds out to the rural. And this time, after years of trying to go in to the city, be closer to that heartbeat, I'm driving away. In the movie Witness, Harrison Ford's a city guy. He's a city guy. He's a cop. He's trying to solve this mystery, this murder, and he ends up living the Amish life, not by choice. He has to. He's injured. He's being taken care of. He's falling in love. He shouldn't. But as he starts participating, he starts reconnecting with the land. He's building barns. He's outside. He's got his hands in the dirt. There's this simplicity to this that I was missing. And I'm just driving now and now I'm in the suburbs. And now I'm getting into the outer ring suburbs. Now I'm in the little townships. I see, you know, everyone walking around, the women with the little strollers and they're got their lattes and I keep driving out into where some of the factories are and the I don't even know what they make, just like gadgets and widgets. Then you go further out of the industrial parkway, and then I start seeing corn. And I just said, drive, man. So I'm driving. And I drove all the way to Amish country. Now, here's where it gets a little creepy. Not really creepy, but you can imagine. I just got the AM freaking radio playing. And all I see is corn, and then I see farms. And I see people tilling the farm and working on the farm. And now I'm in Amish country, and I see a family out on the porch. I'm at a distance. I'm not weird. I'm at a distance, but I pull the car over and I can kind of see, right? Not like I need binoculars to see, but I can kind of see out. And I see this family, and they're just doing family things. They're living their life. The kids are playing, wife's working out front, husband's out there chopping a tree, doing something. And I'm thinking to myself, I could be Amish. I thought to myself, I don't want to be living in the city anymore. I want to be, I want to build a, I want to build a barn. And then I thought, harder life, things I'm not used to. But the beautiful thing is the simplicity of it, the simplicity of it. And sometimes, I know for me, that is something I've dove into is the simplicity of that kind of life. There's beauty to it. Now, I'm also listening to the AM radio. I'm turning the dial, and it just so happened that when I did, I'm going to look this up real quick. There was a replaying of this broadcast that Paul Harvey did back in the day. And that was called So God Made a Farmer. And I had never really heard it before. I'm going to actually read it to you because this was what was playing on the radio on this random AM station. And I'm sitting in the car and I'm watching this, all the Amish people working. And here I am, this like broken down Toyota. It was a Honda Civic. Can't remember. One of my broken down Honda or Toyota cars. It's rusted out. And here's the broadcast that Paul Harvey they were replaying. Again, I didn't know who Paul Harvey was at the time. I just know I'm watching farmers doing farm work. And I'm parked out there and I'm jealous because I don't want to live where I'm at in the city anymore. And I had this pull back to small town, small life. And I'm edging there. I'm trying to get there. And here's what I hear on the radio. And I can't do Paul Harvey's voice, but these are the words. So on the eighth day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, and then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the Farm Bureau. So God made a farmer. I need somebody with strong arms to wrestle a calf, yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild. Someone to call hogs, tame cantankerous machinery, come home hungry, and have to wait until his wife is done feeding visiting ladies and then tell the ladies to come back soon. So God made a farmer. Can't get these glasses clean. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die and then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need someone who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout and shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay wire, feed sacks and shoe scraps, whose planting time at harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon. Then, with pain from tractor back, he will put in another 72. So God made a farmer. God said, I got to have somebody willing to ride the ruts at double speed to get the hay in ahead of the rain clouds and yet stop in midfield and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's place. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales and yet gentle enough to wean lambs and pigs and tend the pink comb pullets, and who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer. It had to be somebody who would plow deep and straight and not cut corners. Somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the self feeder and finish a hard week's work with a 5 mile drive to church. Somebody who would bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says he wants to spend his life doing what dad does. So God made a farmer. Now, obviously, that's scripted, but I'm hearing this in the car. And I'm blown away by this because it it captured this moment, this mood for someone who didn't ever farm in his entire life. It was speaking to the dignity of not only this type of work, but this type of life. Speaking to the beauty of maintaining the spot that you have, the land that you live on, inhabiting a place. You know what I'm saying? Really inhabiting a place. I think there's something to be said about that with farming. You're not just working the land, you're inhabiting a place, deep roots, literally, and with the trees and the plants and everything there. And I've always had that call, deep roots, deep roots. Now, here's the thing. As soon as that broadcast ended, I was about to literally go get a shovel and I was about to go out and start farming. Then I realized, especially looking over at the Amish houses, I thought to myself, they don't have electricity. That's going to be a problem for me. And then I thought to myself, where's the local coffee shop? That's going to be a little bit of a problem for me. So I realized there was this romanticization, if you will, this romance of what it would be to go out right now and live off the land. And I knew I wasn't built or cut for that kind of stuff. But I will tell you what it did. It gave me this sense of knowing what I've always known, which is I want to go and live a smaller life in a small town. So maybe a small suburban life is okay. Maybe that dignity that I knew that was always there is there. Maybe the little towns that are always passed over, always looked over, always stereotyped, always called flyover states or flyover cities, even the ones with not the coolest things to do or the things with a reputation or trying to turn it around when the factory left or the big business that kept that town alive left. These are the places that have such beauty and dignity. And that's when I kind of realized, hey, I'm done trying to go outside like George Bailey and I'm going to live here and inhabit a place. I want to inhabit a place. Except I don't think I'm going to be Amish or I'm not going to be a farmer, but maybe somewhere in between. Kind of like that radio station I was listening to. There's this sense of I've always felt like I'm always been caught between stations. Sort of that city life is one station, one call letter, the other life, the rural life is another call letter. And I'm somewhere in between where you can kind of hear both. And if that's what my life is, it's a beautiful life. My name is Aaron Calafato. You're watching or listening to Unscripted Story Sessions, 9:25 p.m. Eastern. The theme tonight is making sense of small town life. On these streams, I'm going to do it once a month. These are going to be streams that last, as long as they last a couple hours. And I tell unscripted stories, and maybe they start some stories in your mind and in your head and in your heart as well. And this is an opportunity for me to to tell stories the way I tell stories, and also maybe birth new stories that I can share on my podcast. Talking about inhabiting a place. A few years ago, I remember I'm just making coffee inside and I'm looking at my little backyard. I was lucky enough right before COVID hit. I didn't think I was going to be able to get a house. I had this kind of small student debt, hidden private student debt loan that I took out that I didn't know where it was. It was floating around somewhere. And when I moved all over the place, I lost track of it. And then that debt ended up going into default. And I didn't even know it. It was only a few $1,000s. But what it did was it basically prevented me from being able to buy a home because it would just come up like a scarlet letter, like this red alert. And I didn't even know why. I just thought, oh, maybe I'm not working hard enough or I'm not making enough money. Maybe my job isn't great. Well, as my career started to progress, I start working with these corporate clients, consulting with them on narrative, design and podcasting. And I'm going, I think my job's pretty decent. And finally, someone told me, "Oh, well, it's probably because you have a default student loan." I thought, "Oh shit." And so for years, I was trying to get a loan for a house, but I couldn't. So I had to rent. And that's what made city life a little easier because you could always find a place to rent. And it was always more expensive to rent in the suburbs. Well, I end up finally, and this is at a time where I'm engaged, I got 3 kids. We were renting a house and we had a plan to buy it. Next thing I know, we had to buy the house. And so I remember calling up this mortgage lender. My brother-in-law was like, just call this guy. And it's not like he could actually do any magic, but I had given up at this point. I thought I'm just going to rent for the rest of my life and that's going to be life. I call up this mortgage lender. It's February. It's snowing outside. I'm sitting in a car at the end of my rope, at the end of my rope. And I said, hey, listen, I've been trying to get a loan for a long time. I think I have this lingering student debt. I don't think you're going to be able to do anything for me. He said, let me give it a shot. I said, okay. I told him the information, did all the thing, faxed all the stuff. It was a whole week. Anybody who's ever had to try to buy a house or go through that process, it's a freaking nightmare. You're doing a full-time job just sending over bank statements, blood samples. It's the craziest thing. I finally call him back. It's February. It's snowing outside. And he goes, hey, I think I can get you approved for, X amount of money. I said, what? He said, yeah. And by the way, we didn't know this was COVID on its way. It was coming around the corner. And so all of the sudden, I have a loan for a house and I could buy a home. And so when I bought this home, I never wanted to stay in a place more than anything in my life. I was so dead set. I remember saying to myself, I'm never leaving here. I'm buying a house. I'm never leaving. I was so proud to have bought the home. I was so proud of what the home was and the neighborhood and the people that were here before. We had a beautiful place. Nothing crazy. It's just like Goldilocks, not too, this, not too bad, just right. It's the Goldilocks zone. That's what I felt about this house. And I remember one day I'm just drinking coffee and I'm looking out my sliding glass window in the back. And I walk out and I realize I got this like perfect lawn. It's like lawn, but it's not too much to mow. It's not too little to mow. It's big enough for the kids to play out there, but it's not too much that's overwhelming. And I just had this sense of gratitude where it's like kind of just perfectly positioned. And I went into the back and I realized I have all these little things that I love about my house. I have these little things. I got the birds in the back. I'm not a 98-year-old person. I'm saying I like birds. I got birds in the back. I got a cardinal that I'm telling you, these things are supposed to live 5 to 7 years. There's a cardinal living out there. I've become friends with him. He comes out, he sits in a particular place. I call him Cardi B. flying around. He's there through the winter too, man. Through the tough winter, Cardi B is there. Got my favorite squirrel, Jerry. Jerry's running around. Got the little shed out there. Got the little fire pit. And I think back, and I never was a stuff person, never cared about, a mansion, all this kind of stuff. But I remember thinking to myself, this little space, this little plot, this little piece of land, this is ours. When I went outside, I look back at the house and I'm looking inside and I see my wife Corey, she's in the kitchen, and I see the kids kind of going up and down the stairs. And it's weird. It's like kind of a in a reverse effect, like that. What was that, Rear Window with Hitchcock, where he's paranoid, he's looking at all the people in the apartment. This was like the inverse of that. The beautiful part of that. I'm just sitting there watching my life, the people in my life in a house. I got this and had this unbelievable cup of coffee. These are the small things, man. And maybe that's an affliction. Maybe I just don't reach high enough. But these are for me, listen, that's the stuff. A good cup of coffee, a little space you can call your own, friends and family. Shit, that's heaven, man. That's like Kevin Costner, where he says he's throwing, having a catch with his dad. He goes, "Is this heaven?" He goes, "It's Iowa." Turns around, sees his wife and his daughter on the porch, and he says, "Maybe this is heaven. So maybe it is." And I'm standing there, I'm looking at my family just kind of living their lives. And it gave me this sense of how important it is and was and is now to me. And I never knew this. I never understood this. How important it was for me to really inhabit a place. And I got a sense of who, at least who I am. I am a person that wants to inhabit a place fully. There's some people who aren't. Everyone's different. I'm a person that wants to inhabit a place fully and go deep, not wide. Other folks, and you all are different, right? You might be a person who loves the the width of the travel, right? You're like going to all these different countries and going to all these different places. I know people who are like, they wake up every day and they go, it drives me crazy that I haven't been everywhere. There's so many people. Valid. They are like, I think about all the places I haven't been. I think about all the cities I haven't visited. I think about all the countries I haven't visited, all the people I haven't met, the cultures I haven't really, been able to immerse myself in. And people have these as bucket lists. We're going to go here, we're going to go here. And I think that's awesome. But there are some people, and it's beautiful the way we're all put together. There's some people who are are explorers. They want to go wide. And there's some people who are inhabitors. They want to go deep, which is funny because I wonder, looking back, the people that I've come from, they had to be explorers, or at least initially, because they came from another place. I mean, my mom's side, they've been farmers here for a long time, but they all came from England and all these different places. My dad's side, I'm like third generation Italian American. They all came here. So they had to be those explorers. When I think about myself, I'm going, where would I be? If I put myself back there, would I be the person that would leave? Even if I was desperate, even if I knew there was opportunity, would I leave? Man, it would take a lot for me to leave. It would take a ton for me to leave. I would have to be in a dire situation to leave because I'm an inhabitor. I'm like that farmer. I love the experience of going deeper and deeper and deeper into where I'm at. And some people go, that's crazy. That's just repetition. I can't see the same thing every single day. I can't watch the same squirrels, the same birds, have the same cup of coffee. For me, though, it is not repetitive. For me, it actually is a deepening of an experience. One, it's ritualistic. I, there is a ritual for me that anchors experience when you do the same thing every day, but there's something new. There's something new that you notice, something that you haven't experienced before. But it's not just comfort, it's ritual. I think that's the difference. It's not just repetition, it's deepening. And sometimes I'm jealous. I wish I could be. And I tried to be early in my life. I tried to be the George Bailey guy. I wanted to be the person who would go out there. And I did. And I toured my storytelling for years. And I was freaking miserable. I remember sitting in hotels, just being like the only place I felt good was the stage. Because being on the road and doing the thing and being in the hotel, and it's a grind. That's not beautiful travel. That's just travel. But still, there's some people who are built for that, who love that. For me, look, I could spend the entire day just in like a 5 foot radius. I'm just telling stories, going upstairs, having coffee, going to my backyard, looking outside. And for those of you who do that, for those of you who are people who are inhabitants, that's beautiful. For those of you who are explorers, that's beautiful. That's how we are who we are. We got to have both. Because without the explorers, we don't have the people who come to the new country, new place, take risks, take adventures. Without the inhabitants, we don't have homes. We don't have communities. We don't have tradition and culture and ritual. We got to have both. I was thinking about this when I was thinking about, or when I was looking at Artemis 2. We were doing a pact or a bet with our family. We were saying, who would, if someone paid you money to go up in space, would you do it? Some people do it for free. Some people will pay millions to do it. For me, there's no way I'm going into space without getting paid. You got to pay me to go to space because this is a whole nother thing. I have a hard time driving to the other county without getting my rhythm all screwed up. Getting on in a spaceship, it's crazy for me. It's like the movie Interstellar. Matthew McConaughey. He's built to be this explorer. He's got to go out. What does he say to John Lithgow in that scene? He's like, "We're explorers. We're not meant to just be here, just withering away in the dirt." I'm like, I'm John Lithgow. I'm like, no, I'm good in the dirt, man. A lot of good things here. We're gonna keep working. And I'm thinking about Artemis too. The people who went out there, the astronauts, the farthest they've ever been in human history, away from the planet. Talk about explorers. That I can't even fathom it. But we have to have both. We've got to have the inhabitants. We got to have the explorers. Because once you explore, you get a new place. Then you got to. Then at some point, though, we all have to. We all have to explore or die, right? Because at some point, if it's going to be humanity that goes out and starts exploring, and we need a new world, and we got to leave this one. At some point, you got to take the trip. And if it means that there's a chance to inhabit some other place, and I got to take a trip, I'll take the trip. But once I get there, I'm getting my rhythm down. Finding my nearest coffee shop, finding the things that I love where I live. It's 9:40. My name is Aaron Calafato. I'll be your guide and continue to be your guide this evening. This is Unscripted Story Sessions. I'm going to go to the chat here and try to answer some questions that have come in. Just give me a second. Or some comments. Aaron, how did you handle travel on the road for all those years if you're such an inhabitor? I I just dealt with it. What about you? Were you built to travel? For me, it was just never built to travel. So you just endure it. I always wonder if there's actually people who well, I know there is. I talked to Nora Lee Schoonmaker on a bonus episode of my podcast, 7 Minute Stories. I think on my YouTube page, if you guys are streaming on YouTube, there's an episode with Nora Lee and I, a bonus episode called the Storytelling University series on my 7MS feed. And I talked with her. She's riding her motorbike, her motorcycle, through some of the most remote, dangerous areas on Earth. And that's why I wanted to talk to her because I was like, how do you even do something like this? How do you? And she's built for it. What she told me was, I think she said something like the first time she saw a motorcycle, she got on it and just drove away. She's like 5 or 6. There's like a little dirt bike. She just got in and drove away. So that's how she's wired. So for me, how did I deal with it? It was one of these things where I felt conflicted because I knew I loved performing and telling stories. I just didn't want to be on the road anymore. But but I had to do it, and so I just did it. You just grit your teeth and you just do it. What else we got here? Love my backyard. Love all my animals. I name them too. I do. I name mine. I name the little animals. I don't have pets, but I name the little animals. I love my life as well. What else we got? Interstellar is one of my favorite movies. Me too. Only because I live vicariously. I think that's why I love space movies because I'm never getting in the spaceship. So I just got to put my consciousness, suspend the disbelief, watch the movie, and watch people go to space, and then I can kind of embody the story because I don't think I could ever do it. All right, got a couple more in here. I think this is through. Is this Facebook? No. Where are we at? There we are. What's your favorite thing to do in your inhabited place? That's a great question. All right, I can answer that with a story. Favorite thing to do in an inhabited place, like it's almost like a perfect day. There it is. Okay. What's the favorite thing to do in an inhabited place? Perfect day for me would be waking up, going to bed at 2 a.m. Here's a perfect day story. I go to bed at 2 a.m. the day of or the night before because I'm a late night person. So I'm going to bed at 2 a.m. I'm waking up at 9. That's a great refreshing thing. 2 a.m., 9 a.m. I'm waking up. As soon as I wake up, if I look outside, perfect day would be about 57, 57 and a half, 58 degrees, partly cloudy. And maybe I even have the window cracked a little bit. Or I get up from the bed and I just kind of crack the window. Sunlight's coming in. I just lay down for about 30 more minutes. I'm just hanging out. Perfect day. I'm just hanging out. 30 minutes. Sun's coming in. And I got nothing to do. That's the other thing about the perfect day. The perfect day, if you're asking, perfect day is I got nothing ahead of me except what I want to do. And so the first thing I'm thinking about is coffee because that's the first thing I think about. I probably drink 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee a day, but I want my espresso in the morning. So perfect day would be sun's coming in, 58 degrees, partly sunny. I say hey to my wife. I say, hey, I'm going to go get coffee. And I go into the car, but I'm slow rolling everything. I don't, there's no rush. There's no rush. Button up a little bit, nice little shoe, nothing crazy, a little loafer, some jeans because it's a little bit cool outside, maybe a vest. I'm set. Kind of wash the face a little bit, slick back the hair. I'm out. And as I'm driving, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to my favorite coffee space in the morning. And one of the things I just love seeing is people living their life, living their perfect days. You know what I'm saying? Something happens, and it doesn't happen a lot in winter. For me, I can have a lot of perfect days in winter and fall because I love fall and winter, but it happens for people in spring and summer. I love watching people enjoy their life. I love to see what happens. All of a sudden, the spring starts turning. It's like populations triple. Populations freaking triple. Like, where do all these people come from? Got cars everywhere I hadn't seen before. Human beings I haven't seen in 8 months. They haven't come out of the house. Now they're all out. They're all over the place, and you can tell the human experience. Human beings are alive. Not only alive, but they're in sync with nature because as trees are blooming, people are. As the birds are tweeting, people are. You can even hear. There's more. My son tells me he goes, People are honking their horn all the time. As soon as springtime starts, ping, 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 honk. Everyone needs to relax. By the way, everyone's got the convertibles out, especially in Ohio here. We don't see sun that much. So we got a little bit of a problem. So we've been dark, we've been sad, we've been in the house, it's been cold. Spring comes, all of a sudden, everybody's got energy. All of a sudden, everybody's out with their car. Everyone's got the music out loud, the listen to me, look at me music. It, but I love it though, because there's an excitement there. And so just driving around, people watching, I love doing that. I got the window open. I'm just kind of seeing our little town square and how it's buzzing in the morning. I love driving around just a couple of times to see what's going on, if there's any festivals, if the farmers market has started. Uh, what else is perfect about the day? Well, I love then driving up, parking the car, and maybe when I park the car, it's the perfect parking spot. I don't have to be close, just something kind of near, right? And I get out of the car, and you just get energy from each person you walk by. You go, hey, how you doing? Good. How you doing? I'm having a great day. Me too. Do a little small town talk. Weather's great, isn't it? Sure is. Looking for days like this for a long time. We have, haven't we? Cross your fingers. You don't know when they're going away. I love that. You can't have a dissertation. You can't have a Socratic dialogue with someone, but you can have a back and forth. Then going to the coffee shop, I'm not even out of the morning yet. Going to the coffee shop, the smell of the coffee, the sounds of the espresso, and the steam and the conversation. Sometimes I just stand there in line and I listen. I'll close my eyes. I look like I'm doing like a meditation. 4 or 5 people deep. People are getting their lattes, and I just take a few breaths and I realize, man, this is in on planet Earth. There's not many better experiences. And I got to tell you, this is something for me that I have learned over the years, and this kind of goes with tonight's theme about finding meaning in small town life. I used to not understand why these simple things really landed for me. I really appreciated the simple stuff. And just standing in that line for the coffee and just hearing the sounds of people and the conversations, the essence, there is this gift of being alive that is just undeniable. And so that's perfect. And then the thing that makes the perfect day even more perfect is when I get the coffee, I get one for my wife. I'm driving, window down, 58 degrees, partly sunny, and I get her the coffee, and maybe our kids are busy and they're doing their thing, and then the whole rest of the day is perfect because it can just unfold. That's the thing that's perfect for me. A day that has it's like these stories that I riff on. There's no when I riff on these, when I work on these, there isn't it's an exploration and there is obviously a beginning, middle and end, but it's an exploration. That's how I love my days to be. I like my days to be almost like an unscripted story. Some people love the busyness of the everyday, the busyness, and you have to be as a parent. You have to be. Some of your life is busy. I was talking to my wife. I'm like, every year things, and it's not busy fetishism where everyone's like, I'm busy, busy, busy. No, like legitimately busy. Legitimately, like I remember being 13 and thinking I was busy, and then you're 40 with three kids, and you're like, you don't even know what busy is. There's a thing that you have to do. You got to be busy if you're going to be involved, but there's something that you lose. And I wish I appreciated more when I was younger the sort of unscripted runway that you have when you have a day that you don't have to do anything. There's an unbelievable, unscripted sort of organic moment to moment that can happen. The best conversations happen that way. You don't plan them; they just happen. You're at a place, you see someone, haven't seen in a long time. You, why don't we go see a movie? There's spontaneity. Spontaneity can exist in a day that has parameters, in a day that has structure, but if it's scheduled out, you're done. There's no spontaneity. There's no story. There's no free moments. It's like when people travel, to each their own, and they got the itinerary. We got to do this, 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 this. I get you got to be organized. I hear you. You got to be organized. You got to have things that you want to do. But for me, the best vacations in the world are like, let me just give me one thing for the day. We're doing one thing. Then the rest of the day, we're just figuring it out. I love a vacation where the only thing I'm worried about is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If your vacation feels more like a military operation, that's not a vacation. That's a military operation. I was talking with a buddy of mine. He just had a birthday. I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I had a weekend out with my friends, and it's just some peace and quiet." I know as I get older, it's just like all I want is a little bit of peace and quiet. That's it. So I think that would be my perfect day. Is just a day that's unscripted, a day that has coffee, a day that has the people I love, a day that has a structure, but it's malleable enough where things can happen. It's like I remember my grandmother, she would have her door open on a Saturday or Sunday, and people would just come in and out of the house. She'd be making coffee all day. She's got food going all day, and people are coming in and out. And I thought that was the coolest thing. It's like she didn't plan any of it. She just said open door policy. That's another form of a perfect day. That's another way to kind of find meaning in sort of small town life. I love the idea of just having an open door policy. You got coffee going. We got coffee going 24/7. Food is on the table. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My grandmother, she make this food. Boom, boom, boom. It go from breakfast to coffee to pastries. Then she brings out pasta. Then she's got this. Then this. And then family and friends, people you haven't seen, everyone's stopping over. I always thought, she didn't send out any invites. She didn't have a Facebook event. She's not texting a group thread. Graham's not on the text thread going like, hey guys, be over here at 1 and here's the agenda. Grandma said, I got the door open Saturday and Sunday. Food is on the table. You can come in and just stop by. No pressure. We're not doing a pressure thing. And I was amazed. I'd sit there as a kid and watch people just kind of come in. Oh, that's Aunt so and so. Oh, that's Uncle so and so. Oh, that's your cousin. You don't know your cousin. I'm thinking, are these people in town? What is going on here? Open house policy, Saturday and Sunday, inhabiting a place. That simplicity is so cool. So cool. Get to talk to people. You're not just fitting people into a schedule. You get to have a real conversation with people. Unexpected. And it's just about the people. It's just about each other. It's not about anything else. That's a perfect day. My name is Aaron Calafato. I've been telling you stories here for the last, hour and 15 minutes or so. We're going to go for a little bit longer. This is unscripted story sessions. I'll be your guide. This is not quite a podcast, not quite a live event. It's sort of a nexus where stories are retold and told and born, and it hopefully can become a place where we can kind of get together and share our own stories. I see some of the comments here building up in the chat. I'll get to that in a second. Um, let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Here's another thing. People love Hallmark movies, and another way I've embraced my small town life is I just admit the fact that I live in a Hallmark movie. I literally live in a Hallmark movie. I live in Medina, Ohio. I call it Christmas City, USA. You can call it Tree City, USA. When you watch these Hallmark movies, you see these people, there's always the storyline. People have memeified it. There's the person who never left, that's me, that's the inhabitor. In fact, that's not true though. I did leave and I came back. So maybe I'm that person. But my point is there's the person who's committed now to small town life. And then there's the person who doesn't want to come back, that's from there, that has some sort of issue. I'm never coming back to this town. Yeah, it's just not my lifestyle. And then all of a sudden, he or she has to come back, right? You know the story. They come back to town. All of a sudden, they get together, and he or she starts to remember. I always think like Hallmark movies are a side story or an alternate universe if George from A Christmas Story actually left Bedford Falls. Like you could, by the way, greatest movie of all time, but George leaves Bedford Falls, right? And you imagine an alternate universe. He goes out there, he sails the seas, and he realizes what he realizes in the movie, which so many of us realize, which is like travel is great, people are great, cities are great, big parties are great for a minute, but I don't want to live at the party. I want to go home at some point. And home for me was small town Ohio. And so you can imagine this alternate universe where George Bailey goes out there and finally he's like, wait a second, I miss Mary. Where's Mary? Where's my wife and kids? Right? Clarence. I can picture a whole nother alternate universe story. And this is what I'm talking about. This will be a story that I tell on the podcast. George Bailey's alternate story. George Bailey has an alternate universe where he actually leaves Bedford Falls. When he hears that train, comes home and Harry says, "You know what? I'm married. I'm going to be taking over the business. Don't worry, George. I'm taking care of things. You're free to go." And maybe Mary can't go with him. He doesn't get married, and so George goes out there in the world, and he's hanging out with the guy in New York City and selling stocks and bonds. The guy that goes, "Hey, ha, that dude." He's hanging out with him. Maybe he gets on a ship and he goes out and sails all over the world, and he realizes like this is beautiful, this is amazing. He sees some things, but in the back of his mind, in his heart, he's thinking about Mary. He's thinking about that old house that she threw and he threw the stones at. He's thinking about the Bailey Park that he wants to build for all the people who were members of the building and loan, right? He starts having this pull, and I can relate to that pull because I was there. I remember being in New York City being like, all I do is talk about where I'm from. The first paying gig as a storyteller I got was when Johnny, who ran the diner, said, "I want you to tell stories about Ohio. Keep people drinking coffee and eating." The line went out the door. Tell people stories. He gave me $200 a week, so I started telling stories just about my hometown, just about growing up here, just about inhabiting a place, but having a worldly connection with what it is to inhabit a place, no matter where you're at. The smallness, the beauty of living in a small town. But I can picture this George Bailey alternate universe where something calls him home. George is getting called home because he can't live without Mary. And you imagine this. You imagine the alternate universe movie. George comes back into town. Maybe Mary's got a boyfriend. Maybe Mary's engaged. She said, "George, you left. Listen, I don't know what happened, but you left George, and now I'm here. I'm engaged. You think you can just leave town on the adventure? You thought you were too good for us? You said you're going to shake the dust of this small town? Well, guess what you did, George? And you left me here, and I had to go on with my life. And George said, well, I thought I went on with my life, Mary, but I need you. What do you want me to do, Mary? You want me to lasso the moon? Put a rope around it and bring it down? I thought I did it. I thought I did it, but that wasn't what I wanted in life, Mary. It was you the whole time, right? Can you imagine that movie? Five-star kiss. That's that pull. That's that small town pull. But the Hallmark movies, a little cheesier, obviously repetitive, but I love them. Listen, I got a palate. It's like I just had some of the best pasta and sausage and meatballs tonight. I made it from scratch. Chicken cutlets. We had a whole Italian dinner here. But I'm also this person that can go to Taco Bell too. It's not great. I'm just saying I got a wide palate. Okay. Hallmark movies. People give me a hard time. My buddy, my producer Ken, gives me a hard time. He's like, "How can you watch this stuff?" Because one, I like the predictability. Two, I relate to it. I literally live in a Hallmark movie. I live in a little town. I say it's about 30,000 people now, so it's starting to sprout out. But we have the square, we have the history preserved on the square. We didn't, they literally kept the same facades of the building. It looks like you're going back into Smallville. It looks like you're, what is that, Pleasantville when it turns color and then black and white in color? It's literally like that. They have a Christmas festival where hundreds of thousands descend on the city. We have fireworks over the courthouse, people and their kids, and they got popcorn and snacks. And this happens all over America. But I got to tell you, this is something where I will walk around. I'm walking past the barber shop. I'm walking past the comic book store that's still there. All the little shops and the antiques and the people. And on Saturdays, we got the band who plays. I'm talking about the brass band. We got Jazz Under the Stars, baby. We have stuff that most people who fly in and fly over will be like, oh, that's lame. That's life. That's beauty to me. That's nothing to, that's, we embrace the shit out of that. My wife Corey and I, we embrace it so much. We bring our lawn chairs now. We show up. They're playing like what Sousa in the summertime. We're just like, this is amazing. Under the trees and the fireflies are out. It's a Hallmark movie. They've been filming Hallmark movies, these type of movies in our town now. Life imitates art. Art is becoming life. Come on. There's something about this kind of Hallmark esque about the town that I really love. And I get it because, on one hand, there are folks who can criticize it to go, oh, that's not really life. That's not the holistic view of what it is in our country or in America. No, it's not. It's not. But it is a part of it. See, this is what I'm saying. For years, people treated, and I think this comes from a more urban or a city centric kind of viewpoint. I'm telling you, I'm looking, I got a print of Norman Rockwell. I got Norman Rockwell prints all over here. Norman Rockwell, you're not going to find his stuff at museums, unfortunately, and I don't know why, but you're not going to find Norman Rockwell stuff at museums, but it's beautiful. And what's interesting is that's real. Look, the whole thing of, oh, Norman Rockwell, that's just a myth. For some people, it's real. For some people like me, they know what that little barbershop looks like. They know the mailman. Like, have like a relation. Hey, how you doing? Good. How you doing? Like a real person. The woman who owns the bakery, the guy that owns the Chinese restaurant. You got the everyone's got these characters in these towns, and you can even look at it from a Gilmore Girls perspective. Okay, Gilmore Girls has this. Luke's Diner. All these things that we romanticize, we love the stories about them, but then there's the story of, oh, that's not real. I am telling you now, it's not real for everybody. There are towns like it. Storylines, though, that's fantasy because these towns aren't perfect. We're human beings. not perfect. What I love about them, what makes them magic, what living in a Hallmark town is like, I think it's people accepting and loving the fact that the simplicity and the smallness and not having the headline of the party, not having the coolest place, not being featured in the magazine, not being viral, right? Like it's the embrace of like I love the smallness and the quaintness and the beauty of the people here despite what anybody else thinks. And I feel that way. Eh, I don't we don't need validation because it's beautiful. Experiencing that kind of life without the look, I know this guy who plays he's a brass player, plays and he's from this my town. And I hadn't seen him in a long time. He owned a music shop. Next thing I know, 20, 30 years later, I'm at on the square and I'm watching this Saturday the local band, like the county band play, and I see him playing his instrument. And I think to myself, there maybe inside that person, they had a vision of being in the orchestra or being in the symphony band touring the world, but maybe not. Maybe the perfect life to him is working in the music shop and then on Saturdays once a month playing his instrument in the local band for his friends and family. What's crazy about that being a dream? What's and I remember this too. It's like the same kind of thing where it's like people who shit on community theater. What are you doing? Don't get me wrong. We're not talking. There's a space for professionalism. There's a space for the type of skill set needed for being, a stage actor or on film or movies. There's the industry part of it, but it doesn't diminish the attempt of community. And I think about that guy who plays his instrument on Saturday. It's like that's a beautiful dream to have. It's like the guy who's the Elvis impersonator. We just went down the way probably 6 months ago to this little restaurant, and it's kind of like a farm, the whole farm to table thing, and it serves kind of a rural community. And so people from the suburbs go there, people from the country go there, and they bring in these different acts, but they're not bringing in acts from like, you know what I'm saying? There's this Elvis impersonator who's there, and I remember being there. There's probably like I'm the youngest person there. My wife's the youngest people, and I mean 80 years old, something like that. Just sitting there watching this guy, and he is performing as if it is Madison Square Garden. I mean, he is singing, he is doing his thing, and one can think, and I've been there where it's like, man, that's kind of sad. I bet you he had dreams to be a performer, doing this. But then you know what? Maybe there's the world where that's not sad. Maybe that maybe he loves every moment of that. That's beautiful. That's small town life. That's finding meaning in it. And what's funny now is that these are the things that I would skip when I was younger or look over. Now, Corey and I, we go to these things. We go to the band concert. We go to the Elvis impersonator at the local restaurant. That's where life is happening. It's not curated. It's not, oh, I know this person. It's not networking, some bullshit. It's not any of that. It's it's people just being and living without an agenda. And I think that's the basis of the Hallmark movie thing. You got this really repeatable storyline, but the place where they land, the towns where they land, these are people just doing simple things, right? What is the plot at the end of the Hallmark movie, right? It's always save the town festival. We got to save the festival this year. That's everything to them. On the outside, you can say, "What are you doing?" Like it's just a town festival. When you live in a small town, that matters. It matters to the people who organize it, who participate in it. It's my wife. She just helped with a fundraiser for the jazz band in high school. She had me MC it. We're in on this stuff. And I say this now because I remember I as I said at the beginning of the stream, I had this kind of viewpoint where I loved where I was from, but I didn't recognize its greatness. I was always looking for something else. Always looking for the bigger stage, the bigger thing, the better city, the this is cool, but like this is maybe it's full circle now for me. And it's such a freeing thing to realize like, oh, no, I don't have I can like and with the gift of by the way, my profession as a storyteller and a narrative designer and a podcaster and a consultant, with the gift of this, being able to stream, being able to podcast, being able to do all this stuff, best time in the world with all the wild shit happening. And it's wild. It's even more wild because we know about it. I mean, stuff like this has been happening forever across the globe. I mean, human history is a nightmare, right? If they had a algorithm for the medieval times, right? If you had Twitter or X or 24-hour news cycle in medieval times during the plague, the Black Plague. I mean, come on, during just the horrors committed on indigenous people, all this stuff. I'm saying though, hear me out. I'm saying it's always been a mess because we're people. It's always been a mess. Pockets of good things, pockets of beauty, pockets of community. But even now, on a scale, things are better now than they were in mass by far. Data. Look at the data. However, it can still feel disjointed. And I find that going deeper into a place like a small town, like where I live, brings me solace, brings me connection. And it does for so many people. My name is Aaron Calafato. You've been listening here for the last hour and a half. I'm streaming and telling unscripted story sessions. And man, I got to get to some of the comments here before we got, oh man, about 20 or 30 minutes left. I want to tell you about someone I met on this whole finding meaning in this small town America thing, about someone I met at a local store and sort of an imagined life that is an unexpected kind of thing, but it's the people and the lives that we sort of just pass over because we're in this contractual it's not an authentic mode. It's a transactional mode. We're in a transactional mode all the time. Yeah, let me get this two fries, blah 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 blah. Boom. Oh, let me get this. Oh yeah, yeah. We're trying because we have shit to do, right? I get it. I'm doing it too. Head down, moving through life. Bing, bow, boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? It's very transactional. But every once in a while, if you breathe and you stop and you look at another human being, you go, "There's a life there. There's a person. There's a human being there." Let's see. Mark says, uh, "Small town America. I've lived in cities my whole life. Good to know that small town America, it's not perfect, but it actually exists." It does, Mark. It does. It does exist. Let's see what we got here. Now I want to come to your hometown. Well, hey, listen, I think it's good news. You should. I'm going to put it in the, I don't know how many live streams I'm on right now. I'm like on six of them. But all you got to do is look up, let's see, what is it? Medina, Ohio. Just look up Medina, Ohio, and there's a bunch of resources for you. You can see what the hell we have going on here. It's beautiful. Mike, I am a I am, Mike. Are you serious? Mike is a closet Hallmark movie watcher. Yeah, man. Come on. Me. I'm not. I'm out. I'm watching. Corey and I, my wife, we will start watching Hallmark movies. The tradition we have. I won't go too far off on the extemporaneous thing here. But we have a tradition where we start watching Hallmark movies. That's how we usher in Christmas. November 1st. So we have Halloween, we do the fall thing, we get to October 31st, we do Halloween. That night at midnight, we watch our first Hallmark Christmas movie. And then for the first few weeks, that's how we usher it in. Mike, I'm all about it. All right. Actually, I'm wondering, I'm going to start. I'll try to do this here. My name is Aaron Calafato. Like I said, you're watching unscripted, unscripted story sessions. I think I'm going to do a, I'll do that next week. That's good. Okay. I want to tell you about this guy. I'm going to call him Calvin. Also, if any of these stories like Mike did, and there's different folks, I got a chat here that's Omni streamed. I think. I'm sorry if I'm not getting any of yours, but I got them coming in on four different things here. I'm just working this by myself. But if any of these stories kind of trigger a memory for you, drop it in the chat. Just a memory, just an idea, back and forth. And in between the stories, like I just did, I try to get to the comments that boil up here. Streaming at 7minutestories.com, streaming on I think on Facebook, on YouTube, on Riverside, and really wherever you can stream anything. So thanks for joining me here. Unscripted story sessions. I want to tell you about a guy that I met. He's well, I didn't really know him. I go to a store here. It's called Drug Mart. They have everything you need. Northeast Ohio Drug Mart is just the most unbelievable store in the world. If you know, you know. But if you're not from here, it's like what? So this is just a thing. But I go to the store all the time, and it's become a thing I love to do. Like my daughter and I will go on Drug Mart runs. My wife and I, you can just go in there, get something real quick. And it's funky too. It's like it feels still no matter what. And this is not an insult. This is a compliment. Not only do they have everything you need, but Drug Mart feels like it's 1986 all the time. Even when they try to modernize it, you got to feel for Drug Mart like it's 1986, 1992, 1996. I remember I would go to Drug Mart and I would rent movies. They'd have VHS tapes lined up. I'm talking like a whole wall. And you go there, and these bad boys were like 50 cents and 99 cents. I had I spent the whole weekend watching movies for $5, $10. If you had $10, you could watch movies from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all the way through. And I would just stand there. I mean, this was in conjunction with Blockbuster. Blockbuster was cool. Blockbuster cost a little bit of money. It was expensive. And then the fees, and then you had to do Be Kind Rewind, or they hit you with the fee. So Blockbuster was pinnacle. Blockbuster was when things were going good. But Drug Mart was like you could get movies on the cheap. And I remember kind of standing there and just looking at the cover and the titles and reading the back. This was a big deal. Cover art was a huge deal back then because the one kind of it was the first sort of like clickbait, right? You had the title, where it's like Father of the Bride, and it's like okay. Then you had the star recognition. You're like, oh, Steve Martin. Okay, I see that. This is a pretty good one. And so, like he's a funny guy. And then you turn on the back, and it's like you got the quick story. I would, if I could have any other job besides being a storyteller and a narrative designer, it would be a copywriter for the back of VHS tapes. Wouldn't you want to do that? I love that. It would because you had listen. It's like algorithms today. You had about one paragraph where it's like Steve Martin, Academy Award, blah blah blah. Blah. I don't think he's won an Academy, but you know what I'm saying. You had to do Steve Martin. This is the stars in a hilarious comedy in which his daughter, blah, blah, and you in three sentences, you got to get me hooked, or I'm putting that VHS tape back on the shelf. One of the coolest movie posters ever, or at least on the cover, was Backdraft with Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell, man, great actor. Anyways, I just remember seeing was the shadow of the firefighter with like the man that was great. Drug Mart. Drug Mart had a makeup and it still does. It has like a cosmetic area. It had a VHS movie area. You could run there and get just loaf of bread, but they go a little deeper. They got a little deli section. Okay, you're getting dangerous there. Okay, cool. Now we got whole milk, yogurt. Then they got the canned good. Drug Mart is awesome. They got the travel stuff. They got candy. If you haven't been to a Drug Mart, listen, I'm just doing this stream. I don't know anybody at Drug Mart. I'm just saying, if you haven't been to one, if you're not from Northeast Ohio, you're traveling through. I know a lot of folks listen to 7 Minute Stories and watch these streams. You got to go because it's just an experience. I'm, this guy, I'm falling in love with drugstores. It's the little things, though, right? That's finding meaning in small town life. But the last few months, there's this guy. His name, I'll call him Calvin. Speaking of the 90s, by the way, Big Mac nets the Hamburglar. Look at this. Got a whole set of these. Kept seeing this guy, 80s. I was telling my daughter, I was like, this guy's working all the time. Nothing wrong with that. But you go, you get, I'm thinking, what's going on with this guy? And when you see him, there's something about this guy, Calvin, at Drug Mart. He is always upright. There's a dignity, eye contact, not overly like groomed, but he looks buttoned up, shirt ironed. And whenever he sees, he's always on the watch. Whenever he sees the lines getting too deep, he called, hey, all right, I can help you. I can help you. He's active. He's always helping the customers out. This guy's unbelievable. And every once in a while, I kind of go in there and I'm like everyone else. I get very transactional. Yeah, I got this. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking card, tap. And yeah, okay, cool. Stripe. Okay, it's not working. The stripe. Okay, tap. Mm-hmm. Put the thing in chip. Okay, cool. Bags. All right, cool. Put the things in things. All right, cool. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye. I'm not even making a human connection. I'm just, I'm just, a, I'm just a complete ball of anxiety going from one moment to the next. Always having to check myself with that. Even in Drug Mart, got to chill out. It's for all you folks getting mad in line. I get it. This line's really long. Okay. I do it too. Okay. What's going on here? This line's really long. Where are you going? I understand. Someone's having a baby. There's an emergency. I get it. Big deadline at work. Most times you're going home to put on your slippers, bro. You feel me? You, you're same with me. There's a really long line. Where am I going? Going back to like take the trash out. You solving? Are you solving the like some sort of like uh, mystery? You a detective on the prowl? You got a deadline? I'm saying this to myself too. When I get uptight, the line's kind of long at the Drug Mart. What's going on here? This is just unacceptable. Get your life together. No matter what's going on at Drug Mart, Calvin, calm, treats people with respect, moves the line along. And I started wondering, like, who is this guy? I ask him questions, but I don't want to get. You can't, I'm not going to be like, tell me about your life. He's got customers and stuff. So I started imagining what a life, what his life is like. Does he have to work here? Does Calvin need to work here? I've seen, so many stories of people who are in their 80s and stuff who have to work. It doesn't seem like that with him. I think he wants to. And I had to come up with an imaginary story because I remember my daughter said, he is a very elegant man. I said, he is an elegant man. And I could picture Calvin being a pretty successful business guy. Maybe not. Maybe he just worked with his hands. Maybe he worked at a factory. Maybe he had a maybe he was a supervisor. Maybe he worked with numbers. But I could see even then when he worked that he was very dedicated. I could see I could see Calvin's life that he wasn't skipping out at 4:50. He's waiting until 5. Whether you think that's good or bad, he was just dedicated. And I can see now, I don't think Calvin's just alone. I think his wife's still alive. I think he has his wife at home and she's got her life. I can imagine Calvin's wife has a little bit of she's got a garden in the back and she's still, even though they're in her 80s and maybe even 90s, they're still able to move and they have the youth of life still in their blood. And I can imagine at some point when Calvin retired, after being a successful guy, he's sitting around, he's thinking, I want to do something, man. I don't want to just sit around. I mean, maybe he traveled, maybe they did that, maybe they checked things off the bucket list, but maybe Calvin's like me. Maybe Calvin doesn't need to go to other countries to feel complete. Maybe he just wants a simple purpose and repetition and ritual where he lives now. Maybe he needs just the simple stuff of life, but he's got to be anchored. And maybe, like many of us, there's a difference between being a workaholic, where your priorities are flipped and you forget your family and all these things, you forget the things that are important. And then there's a difference between that and finding purpose in work. And not just to, man, it's not just like going on autopilot and just numbing yourself until you die. I'm talking purpose, like this Japanese idea of ikigai, right? Where it's all put together, where purpose and life and family all has a mix. It's the work life balance. But there's a deep integrity in work. And I kept thinking to myself, this dude Calvin has so much damn integrity at Drug Mart. I remember being a teenage kid working at places like that. I was a shit. I didn't care. I was arrogant. I gotta take your order. Not Calvin, not my man Calvin. My man Calvin, he gives a shit. I'm getting warmed up. He cares. That's such a beautiful thing to care. Apathy is such a throwaway thing. That was the thing that was I remember growing up, people who were apathetic, I don't care. That was cool. Uh-uh. That's what they sold you as cool. What's cool is someone like Calvin who shows up every day to his job at Drug Mart in his late 80s and does the best he freaking can for everybody. By the way, he's business too. He's not just there as a social butterfly. That's what I'm saying. I think he's got a home life that's good. I imagine this. I imagine this. And maybe one day I can ask him. I just don't want to take him off course. He's all about business. You can tell he actually takes a lot of pride in what he does there. And that's a cool thing too, because I imagine he had a successful career. And the true thing about success is that the way you behave and the dignity you bring to your work, that's what makes you successful. Where it doesn't work is when you think you're too good for something. I I'm sure Calvin could be like, yeah, I was a successful businessman. I'm going to come here and this isn't important. He is operating. You got to meet this. I wish he could be there. He is operating under the premise that this job might be the most important job in the world, when we all know it's not, but it doesn't matter. It's how he treats it. And you can feel that difference when you engage with people. You know this. It's not about people treating you nice because you have an ego, but when someone makes that eye contact, sees you, would you, hey, you've been waiting in line for a long time? Like when you walk into a store, is there anything worse than no one acknowledging you? It's just crickets. And you almost have to be like, do I have to say hello? And it's not about ego. It's just about like, I'm here to patronize you, not Calvin. He sees you standing awkwardly. I got you. You come here. I'll take care of you. You it's all you know what it is. It's like it's you're seen. So Calvin, I imagine, has a life at home that's he's fulfilled, but he wants that purpose in life, and he's bringing it to Drug Mart. I can imagine before work what Calvin does. I can imagine that he has his work clothes laid out. I can imagine that he irons his clothes because I can see it where he's got no wrinkles. And I know he's working back to back shifts. I can imagine him with a cup of coffee next to him on the dresser or a little bench, or maybe he's got a little mirror in the kitchen. I can imagine that while that coffee's steaming, he's always early for work, at least 10 minutes. I can imagine he walks in there always, good morning or good afternoon. 10 minutes early, Calvin, as usual. But before he gets there, I can picture him just buttoning his shirt in the mirror, combing his hair, and going to work. Meeting people like that, it's a reminder to me to stop being so transactional, take a moment to say, hey, I see you, I appreciate you. And maybe one of these days, when the timing is right, I'll ask him, not to make it awkward, like, hey, I see you working here all the time. Like, you put a ton of pride into this. Like, tell me a little bit about yourself. Maybe just hearing that other story, that person's story. That's what this whole thing's about. My name is Aaron Calafato. You've been streaming with me. I've been streaming with you. 10:33 p.m. Eastern. Got probably another half hour in me to do this. I'm getting some of these messages here. I got this one. Calvin's my hero. Calvin's my hero too, by the way. Oh, and I've been reminded. Is this? I think this is who, I don't know which Vicky. I think it's my mother-in-law, Vicky, saying it's discount drug mart. Well, shorthand's drug mart, but she's absolutely right. It is discount drug mart, and they do save you the runaround. Anybody not from Ohio, you gotta try out discount drug mart. Who else is here? This one came in. I can't tell the name. This is a great one. When I was poor, raising my daughter, we would use trips like this all the time to pass time. I totally relate to that. Going to a store, I got a couple of things I did when things were rough, and that can always happen, by the way. It can happen tomorrow. Um, I had a couple of tips. One, going to the store and making a day out of it. That's an amazing time. And you can limit the amount of money that you spend, but you get like a candy bar, and then you just take the kid down the aisle, back and forth, and you make an adventure and you make believe. The other place is, if you have a few bucks, is or get like a coupon. A lot of them do like an initial sort of free month, a car wash. I always treated that as like the place I'd go, and you'd have an adventure with your kids. You're like, we're going to the car wash. My parents did that with me, and I do that with my kids to this day. They're like, dude, it's a car wash. I'm like, no, it's not. It's an adventure. There's water everywhere and strobe lights. And I'm not crazy, because if you know, a lot of these car washes do this at Halloween, where they got the haunted house thing. So, hey, I'm not the only one. All right. Talked about Calvin. Man, I talked about being Amish, wanting to be Amish. This whole night's really been about talking about small town life and finding meaning in it. And I'm really glad that I did. I mean, I'm really glad I decided to not only move back to where I'm from, but to have planted roots here and to raise a family here it's cool to see familiar faces. I feel like when I was in the city, when I was in New York, it's like so amazing, but I couldn't get my mind around it. I couldn't get it didn't feel manageable. And how can you manage a city like that? And that's why people go and, you got your boroughs and it goes down to blocks, right? It's blocks, but even then, it's so massive. There's so many people. It's hard to it's hard for something to become, for me at least, identifiable. It's hard to inhabit a place that's so uninhabitable as far as its size. Because even the blocks, there's so much turnover and people and this and that. And some people live off of that. I love the idea that I could see the same person every day kind of doing the same thing, or at least en route. And it's not a Truman Show thing. That's the thing. The other side of the coin here is that, oh, small town life, suburban life, Pleasantville, it's just repetitive, this and this, people doing what they want to do. That's one way to look at it. But that's not real, because it's just people doing what they need to do with dreams just like all of us. And by the way, they do what they need to do and they have a certain rhythm and a pattern. And then all of a sudden, that changes. That they could change their mind, they could change their career, something could happen to them. They could move. Things happen. So it's not that it's just the same thing every single day. It's that I love the idea of actually then creating relationships with these people. You can actually have an ongoing conversation with the barista that you see. You can have the relationship with the barber, and you can do this in cities too. But it's just different. It's just different because there is a sense that you're all in it together. And I got to tell you, I think that's why it's got to be more manageable to navigate and manage and govern countries that are smaller. We always hear the statistics of certain countries of like their happiness levels incredible. They're able to share this. I'm telling you, it's got to be because of the size. There's got to be a magic number for humanity where it's like there's got to be a magic number of what is an ideal size of a country. Here's not an ideal size. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about geography. Russia. That's a nightmare. Could you imagine? I mean, we're not talking politics. I'm talking about geography. Even if it was like, hey, you are going to be running Russia. Good luck. The size of that place, how do you even govern? How do you, the geography, Siberia, Moscow? I mean, the size is unbelievable. United States is big, not close to that, but that's what I'm saying. What's so unbelievable here is that there is still a unified thread, even though we're very divided now, there's still a unified thread. And I think about it this way, it's like on the state level, that feels where it kind of works, right? Like the state level, that size, the comparison, I think even now, like I'll look it up, like Ohio has, I think 11, between 11 and 13 million people. Let's see where we're at now. I'm going to nerd out about populations. Yeah. It's approximately 12 million. It's the seventh most populated state in the country, by the way. People don't realize this. Ohio is the seventh most populated state in the country, and it's had a slight population increase in recent years. They had a little bit of a decline, but now it's up. Um, so you have that, right? And then let's look at the population of Sweden, right? Population. I'm just guessing here. 10.7 million. So you got Ohio that has a population of about 11, 12 million. Sweden's entire population is this population of Ohio. And when you think about how things function on a state level, unifying people, programs. It's not perfect, but you can see how it works from a country standpoint when it works better with that population. I'm telling you, size and population has everything to do with the ability to kind of govern and a country where things in systems work better. Maybe that's hell. Maybe that's the number. Maybe it's 2 or 11 million is like the number where it's like we're going to cap your country at 11 million, and maybe the United States is just a bunch of little countries. We just call it like it's the country of Ohio. It's the country of wild, right? And some of obviously it, I just think that there's something to be said about that. And that's the only comparison I have to what it's like when you think about these mega cities. It's almost hard for me it was to feel a part of it and to feel a part of it in a meaningful way. I had a teacher, an acting teacher. She passed away. Amazing. Uh, she was an Oscar winner in her, I think, in her 60s in a movie called Moonstruck with Cher. Her name was Olympia Dukakis. And I remember going to her when I was in acting school in New York. And I was struggling with this small town thing then about being from a place I loved, wanting to come back to the Cleveland area, but not knowing if I'd be able to work as an artist. This was I was suffering with this. And I remember coming to her and kind of asking advice. And she said to me, well, first she asked, do you want to be an artist or an entertainer? And that was a wise question. I was like a 20 something year old idiot. And she goes, and Olympia Dukakis, she goes, do you want to be an artist or an entertainer? And she goes, if you want to be an entertainer, do the New York thing, kind of get into a system, you become a brand, and it just becomes kind of and it's not that art can't exist, it's a different approach. She said, if you want to be an artist, go where artists are needed. And I remember I felt really called to that. And that gave me the courage to come back in this small town life, to come back to, Medina, Ohio, 20 minutes south, 30 minutes south of Cleveland, because I felt like I could make an impact and have a life there. And artists are needed. And so it was less about industry. It was less about making it. It was less about being in the place that's cool. And it's about being in the place that needs it and that I need. And when you live in a small town and you make a contribution, the beautiful thing is you can feel it. And it's not ego. It just feels great to know you're making an impact. And to see it, you can see it with people. You can see it because you know a lot of them. And so for me, that's sort of the full circle of finding meaning in small town life. Sometimes finding meaning in has a lot to do with the rituals that you have and the things that you love doing. I remember, speaking of discount drug mart movies, I remember as a kid, I'd spend long, weeks with my grandparents. This set of grandparents lived out near Chagrin Falls, and we'd go to a place called Bernie Schulman's. I think it turned into a Mark's, but it's similar to a drug mart. And it had all these movies, VHS movies at the time. And I remember I went and I got a movie called A River Runs Through It. And I watched this movie. Usually I watch the movie with my grandfather, but this time I watched it by myself. And even as like a preteen watching this, I had never been more struck with the beautiful storytelling that was in this movie. A family, a dad who was a Presbyterian minister, his two boys who lived in a place in Big Sky country in Montana. And in that life in the country, I mean, out in the country, in the mountain, in the rivers, and the streams, they fell in love with this art of fly fishing. And the metaphor of the fly fisherman and fly fishing and the repetitive nature and the discipline that you had to have and the peace where these people would you're standing in the river and it's just the water's going past you and you're almost becoming this dance with nature, something I never really experienced because I only went fishing like one time, but I could see what they were saying here in this movie. And the storylines are just unbelievable how two brothers in the same place go two different directions. But ultimately, there is this unification at the end, even through tragedy, with fly fishing. And there's this amazing monologue at the end. It's incredible because it summarizes when you're reflecting on your life and when you live in a place and you truly inhabit a place, the place and nature compared to us keeps going in what feels like forever, where we're finite, and nature is still finite, but on a longer trajectory. And how this main character at the end, despite all the changes of his life and the beauty of his life and the ups and downs, and he lived a full life, and his wife passes away, and he's just left doing the thing he's always done that his dad taught him to do, which is fishing, fly fishing. Let me see if I can find that monologue, and I'll end the stream with it. No pun intended. River runs through it. All right, here it is. So you got this character at the end, and he's in this final reflection of his life, and he's standing in the stream in the river, and he's trying to put his fly on the end of the thing with fly fishermen. And Robert Redford, who just recently passed away, voices this monologue of Norman MacLean's novella, which the movie was made after. A river runs through it. But here's the ending monologue. Really, the ending, and especially the last two paragraphs of MacLean's masterful "A River Runs Through It." It just echoes. It's like very biblical, but it's also true Americana. It says, "Now, nearly all those I loved and did not understand when I was young are dead, but I still reach out to them. Of course, now I'm too old to be much of a fisherman, and now, of course, I usually fish the big waters alone, although some friends think I shouldn't. Like many fly fishermen in western Montana, where the summer days are almost Arctic in length, I often do not start fishing until the cool of the evening. And then in the Arctic half light of the canyon, all existence fades to a being within my soul, and memories and the sounds of the big Blackfoot River, and a 4 count rhythm, and a hope that a fish will rise. Eventually, all things merge into one, and a river runs through it. The river was cut by the world's great flood and runs over rocks from the basement of time. On some of the rocks are timeless raindrops. Under the rocks are the words, and some of the words are theirs. I am haunted by waters." I remember watching that end of that movie, just not being even old enough to understand. And it was like getting hit with the left hook of life. Just, I was like slow motion. And for some reason, I find this connection between that movie, that moment, and the life that I've chosen to embrace here in my smallish town. And that there's so much meaning in the small rituals, the people like Calvin at Drug Mart and the Hallmark stories that seem cheesy but that mean a lot to a lot of people. That there's courage in staying and doing what's hard, like George Bailey did in It's a Wonderful Life. Staying even when you have a desire to see other things and do other things, and you'll get there and you should. But some of us, many of us, that the town, the place, it can't get it out of us. I was saying earlier in the stream, I do have I'm envious for some people who can just go and leave where they grew up, and frankly sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes the way you came up wasn't any good and you need a fresh start. And I understand why that would be easy, why you would want to do that. But even with the ups and downs in life, I if you had a relatively meaningful upbringing and it wasn't traumatic, I'm envious of some people who can just go, yeah, I'm going somewhere else. Because I tried, I failed at it. And it's not that I failed at what I was doing, I failed at being able to get the place, because it's not a it's physical, but it's metaphysical. The places we're from don't exist. They do exist outside of us, but they become symbiotic with who we are. The meaning and the symbols. There's a conversation that happens between where you're from and how you live, and the things we do on a ritualistic basis. That becomes the conversation, a covenant of, if you will, with your place and and you can feel it when a town is like that. You can feel it when there's a deep and loving connection with a place and its people. And so I think telling stories in my town and obviously telling stories to people around the globe, that's the best of both worlds. And that's one thing I love doing. How I adapt my stories from my podcast. I'm a weekly article in the local paper. I'm a Hallmark movie, and I'm loving every second of it. And the gift of being able to do that, to build roots, and at the same time have a microphone like this and an amplifier like this on audio feeds and podcast feeds and streams and all that stuff that can go out everywhere. You get the best of both worlds. In a weird way, you get to be an explorer and an inhabitor at the same time. You get to be hyper local and global at the same time. And that maybe is really what I am. I'm kind of caught between the radio waves. And maybe this is the perfect balance for me. And maybe you can relate. All right. Aaron Calafato here. Unscripted story sessions. First one in the books. Thank you for all your comments. Thanks for tuning in and listening. I'm going to be doing this once a month. I'm going to put another event together for next month for another hell, maybe I'll do 3 hour stream next time. And share stories the way I tell them without a script, create new ones. I created a few of them tonight, reshare old ones, and hopefully spark some stories and memories for you. Whether you're finding this in the morning, listening to it on a commute, or falling asleep, I hope you find this replay wherever you stream and subscribe wherever you're getting this stream to join me next time I go live with an unscripted story session. Have a good night.